Hey, hope you're all doing well. Today I wanted to nitpick my favorite game in the Fallout franchise, that of course being Fallout New Vegas, for a few reasons today. First off, the list of critiques I have for this game is just significantly shorter than my list of compliments, thus making this video is on a smaller handful of critiques is just a lot quicker. If I were to go through my compliments, we'd be here for hours. In addition, outside of the bugs, and for some people the graphics feeling too dated, which admittedly I don't agree with in my opinion, but you know, we could disagree on that, that's fair enough. I could see where they're coming from for sure. I haven't really come across any other critiques of this game outside of those two though, at least not too many, so I feel there's a lot of room for me to say something interesting here, unlike the praises which have been vastly covered in several excellent video essays that are well over an hour long each. So yeah, let's get into it. My first critique would be that sending Legion assassins after starting single-digit level players after the overwhelming majority of them will inevitably kill the Legion members that nipped in for what they did is so overkill. Like on my first playthroughs, and in addition, most of the ones that I've seen, I found that even regular Legion members would more often than not win fights against the player until they got around to level 10 or so at least. So sending them still just setting regular Legion members would still get the narrative point across that the developers were trying to go for without feeling kind of cheap in my opinion, because sending in the assassins is just way too much. Speaking of the Legion, my next critique would be that there's a massive lack of quests and tasks in general in the Legion territory. Now of course, most of the in-game area is controlled by the NCR or House, so it makes sense that those two factions will have more to do in their areas overall, but the Legion lands are truly sparse, even proportionately in comparison to the other factions, by several magnitudes it feels like. I don't even mind that they have the least again, but just they made it way too sparse in my opinion, and it gives players very little incentive to even go there. I mean, and again, there's very little Legion territory that's playable, that's fine, but even the little bit that's there is not even interesting, and that kind of sucks. Now what I'm going to say will be heresy to some, but I honestly don't strongly favor one side or the other when it comes to the arguments around fast travel in games. On the one hand, I find it certainly doesn't ruin the game for me, and certain games like Daggerfall for instance would be practically unplayable without a fast travel system. But I really appreciate things like the Silt Stratters in Morrowind and the carriage drivers in Skyrim far more than simply fast traveling to a discovered location, for instance. So for New Vegas, I really have to wonder why they put so much train infrastructure all across the Mojave, yet didn't utilize that as a transit system. You don't even have to code you being in it and all that thing that you would have to show in the window view or any like video thing, cutscene or any of that. It could literally just be like the monorail or that one boat that takes you to the castle of Okahar in Skyrim that just teleports you to the other side instantaneously. I would just really appreciate an option that's not as time consuming as walking on foot everywhere all the time, but also still more fulfilling than just fast traveling to markers, and all the rails and stuff are literally already there, so it feels like a missed opportunity to me. Speaking of the monorail, it's kind of BS that the NCR shoots you if you go onto the monorail. I've accidentally done that several times and had to reset to my last save. Sometimes that was pretty far away, annoyingly. Like, neither the Strip nor Camp McCarran are off limits to the courier unless they're actively hated in either area, so why? Why not make it so the player is charged money for using it until they are idolized by the NCR, thus maintaining a benefit of it only being accessible, or at least one unique benefit that would only be accessible to those idolized by the NCR related to the monorail, while still not making it off limits for other players in such a violent, ridiculous fashion, and it would be providing good world building as to a source of local income for the NCR in this area. I also have one critique that is strictly due to personal annoyance. I can't stand that kid that advertises Mick and Ralph's stuff on the corner in Freeside. Aw, jeez. You have to do a lot of back and forth between the different parts of Freeside, so you'll hear this guy say his line way too often. Like, at some point it's no longer funny and just being a dick to include him and make him this obnoxious. There's one other character I have a gripe with. Melissa. How and why is a mundane quest you run into so early on in the Don't Make a Beggar of Me quest reliant on talking to a girl that got into the middle of Quarry Junction? That place is literally surrounded by Deathclaws, and the Great Khan NPCs are some of the weakest faction NPCs in the game. There's no way she was able to get in there. It feels immersion breaking, the very notion is so unbelievable. Of course, she's also required to talk to if you want to complete the Great Conquest line, which also feels like absolute overkill in difficulty for the task proposed and the rewards given. A major critique I have related to character builds is that the science skill can too easily feel like wasted points. If you put a certain amount of points in a speech to meet the check, you pass. If you put any other skill check requirement for any dialogue option that you get, you pass immediately. And even in other skills that have affiliated minigames like lockpicking, they're pretty easy for myself and most players I see. In addition, you can continue to try as long as you keep getting more lockpicks, and if you fail, you can always go back to it. However, the hacking minigame is just way too frustrating and random. I don't know if there's any way to automatically know the right answer or not, but it feels bad on your first character to put the most points into science, and then on every terminal you finally even have a chance to access thanks to those points you put in this skill, you fail only a small handful of times and then you can never try again. No other skill is like that, and it just makes the skill worse off because of it. My final and largest critique is the amount of invisible walls, especially in the overworld. This game it's just genuinely oppressive in this game. I'm not being very hyperbolic either when I say I've never seen a linear game with this amount of invisible walls that are all so poorly communicated. Like, genuinely, if I had a good way to record my gameplay footage that was better quality than my phone camera, I could have probably over an hour compilation of invisible walls on areas that are easily climbable otherwise. And not even ones that are like, oh, on the edge of the map so you know the world has to end somewhere, like in the middle of the play area. Well, I've come to love this game. I remember on my first playthrough, between the overkill ascending Legion assassins after my level 5 at most first time player, and the invisible walls blocking areas that were even right in the middle of the game world, not along the edges or anything. Like I said, just this open world game felt more restricting at that moment than like gondola sections on Halo 2, which obviously that was not the intent that the developers were trying to make. So I feel like that was a bit of a miss. Despite going on this entire time about all the things I dislike about New Vegas, these things are in the end nothing but nitpicks in comparison to my overwhelming love and praise for it. I have no faith that Bethesda would ever greenlight something like this, but if somehow we do get a New Vegas remaster someday, I'd love to see these nitpicks amended, in addition to, of course, trying to put in any of the loads of cut content that they have that they could, at least. That would make sense. So yeah, I'll leave my other Fallout videos in the description if you're interested in watching more of me talk about the franchise. I'll try to make a playlist for it if I remember. There's also a ton of Fallout music extensions and compilations to check out on the channel as well. Lastly, the usual links to the channel's Twitter and PayPal if you want to support the channel, in addition to my business email, are all in the description as well. So yeah, have a good day.